The American Revolution by Henry Daverso, Peter Del Rey, and Harrison Keller. Motivation for colonization. Why did the English seek to colonize? They wanted to express their Protestant/Puritan beliefs without being persecuted for them. What are their motivators? They knew that there was free land and they didn't want to live in fear. The 13 original colonies. What were they? They were Maine, New Hampshire, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Delaware, Maryland, Virginia, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. They were separated into 3 groups based on location: New England, breadbasket colonies, and the southern colonies. The Navigation Acts of 1651. What did they do? The British wanted to control as much over trade as possible, to ensure more exports and imports, also to settle much more land and colonies as they could, to get more flow of raw materials into their markets and such. Also prevented gold and silver from leaving the country. French and Indian War and English debt. How was this war played out? The British, it began on 1754 and ended in 1763. The English won the war and gained lots of territory in North America. It affected the economic situation because the war was really expensive and made the English tax on the colonists, leading to more taxes, and the colonists got more angry, leading to the Revolution. King George III. He was the King of Great Britain and Ireland. He was leader of the English monarchy. He did not want the Americans to revolt, so he sent thousands of troops and naval ships to the coasts and land of the Americas to prevent any attacks. Also gave the colonists many acts or taxes to ensure power over them. He sought to control all of America and to have complete control and have English rule over all of them. He went sick after the Revolutionary War, and he also went insane. The Proclamation of 1765. Issued on October 7th, 1763, by King George III of England, stated that no one would settle land past the line drawn by the Appalachian Mountains. This made the colonists very angry because they wanted to explore more of the West. The Sugar Acts, started on April 5th, 1764, by British Parliament, was a tax on molasses and sugar. The colonists were mad about this because it was another tax and increased taxes on exporting, and it cost more to have British coffee, dye, and French wine. The Stamp Act. No taxation without representation. This was a tax on all papers in the colonies. All papers had to be printed and stamped and were made in England. There were many protests and petitions signed to this, and the Americans started to feel like they were being taxed without consent. The Sons of Liberty, leaders of the colonies, fought for the rights of the colonies. Some of them include Samuel Adams, Benedict Arnold, John Hancock, Patrick Henry, James Thompson, Paul Revere, James Swan, and Alexander McDowell, just to name a few. The Boston Massacre happened on March 5th, 1770, when British troops killed 5 colonists after panicking due to snowballs thrown at them. This started hate for the redcoats in the colonies. They named it a massacre to over-exaggerate it and cause more hate towards the British, leading to the American Revolution. The Tea Act of 1773. The Tea Act was an attempt made by Great Britain to help the failing East India Company. The act was to increase the price of smuggling tea and have the colonists buy from the company. This angered the colonists because they would have to pay more for their tea. The Boston Tea Party. The Boston Tea Party was held by the Sons of Liberty, who cared about the rights of the colonists. They held the Boston Tea Party to protest the tax on tea by throwing the tea off the cargo ships. The Untouchable Acts was Parliament's answer to this, which removed self-government in Massachusetts and also closed the British harbor and their trading hubs. Common Sense by Thomas Paine. The pamphlet Common Sense was written by Thomas Paine and published on January 10, 1776. Thomas wrote Common Sense because he found people feeling sick and tired of British rule. The pamphlet stated that the colonists should rise up and seek independence from Britain. The pamphlet was a massive success and helped to start the Revolution. The Enlightenment thinkers that influenced the American Revolution. Two of the most influential Enlightenment thinkers in the seeking of the independence were Thomas Paine and John Locke. Thomas Paine wrote Common Sense and The American Crisis, which gave the colonists hope and desire for freedom. John Locke used political views to express his thoughts and even helped people like Thomas Jefferson. He used the phrase liberty, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness in writing the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was written by Thomas Jefferson. The Declaration stated the official independence from Britain and listed the complaints against King George III, and asserted the rights of the American people. The four parts of the Declaration of Independence are the preamble, which is the introduction and the purpose of the Declaration. The second part gives the citizens basic human rights. The third part lists key points against the king, and the last part grants the freedom of the 13 colonies. A declaration of war is the formal act on one nation to go to war with another. The Revolutionary War. Coming off of a war-winning streak from beating French and Spain before, the British had upgraded soldiers and supplies, plus weapons. But the colonists were fighting at home, and it took the English months to get their supplies, and the colonists were fighting for a much better cause. George Washington was the leader of the Continental Army. General William Howe was the leader of the British Army. And Loyalists were people that were living in the colonies and were still loyal to the king. War broke out between the colonists and British. The colonists/Americans won the war. The war was from April 19, 1775 up until September 3rd, 1783. Treaty of Paris. The Treaty of Paris was the end point of the Revolutionary War. The United States and Great Britain were no longer fighting, and the United States officially gained their independence. The negotiations were handled by John Adams, Benjamin Franklin, and John Joy, also by Thomas Jefferson and Henry Lawrence. Articles of the Confederation. The Articles of the Confederation was the first Constitution of the United States and went into effect on November 15, 1777. This Constitution created the United States in independence and was also a centralized government. The government had too little power and the states had too much power, so Congress at the time made a new Constitution and replaced the Articles of Confederation on March 4th, 1789. The Constitution. The Constitution was ratified on September 17th, 1787, and was a document in which the colonies gained their own form of government from the British rule. It protected freedom, and it stated that the power was given back to the United States, and the United States was to govern themselves. The elect of Washington. He was elected on February 4th, 1789. He was chosen for his amazing leadership, and he led with experience in the war and also as president. Solitary neglect. The policy that the British used to control trade in the colonies. The British loosely enforced this and let the colonies do whatever they want as long as they remained loyal and produced profit for Britain. The policy gave the colonies more power in legal and government areas, which helped to lead to independence. The Olive Branch Petition. The Olive Branch Petition was created by John Dixon and was sent by Congress to Britain. The petition was an attempt to show the rights of the colonists while still remaining loyal to Britain. This was an attempt to avoid war, but it was the breaking point. British declared the colonists traitors and sparked the Revolutionary War. Lexington and Concord. Start. April 9th, 1775. It was held in Middlesex County, Massachusetts. The colonists drove the weapon-seeking British forces back to Boston, where they started the Revolution. They were warned by Paul Revere. The colonists were warned by him to go to Lexington and Concord to fight, and all the Minutemen showed up and fought for the colonists. Major battles of the Revolution. May 10th, 1775, the Battle of Fort Ticonderoga. June 17th, 1775, the Battle of Bunker Hill. January 17th, 1781, Battle of Monmouth. October 7th, 1777, the Battle of Saratoga, which was the bloodiest battle of the war.